Daryl, you are going to be covering the Cleveland Browns this week, the Jerry Jeudy stuff we went over, and you've been asked, and Ken, Ken doesn't know this, but I kind of snicker every single time we have a Browns guest on over the last month. Who's going to be the starting quarterback? Like every first question is.
And I'm looking forward to answering that question for the next 6 weeks.
Yes.
Every time I'm on.
Well, we're done with stuff like you're going to hear from Mark Schlereth. We're done.
A new video is circulating online, and it has sports radio hosts talking. The clip shows a street interview. A person on camera says legendary as a greeting. He's asked where he's from, and he says Cleveland, Ohio. That's the moment that kicked off a segment on a sports radio show where hosts spent several minutes breaking down the video, reacting to it, and debating what it means heading into training camp. Let's walk through exactly what happened, in order, using only what was actually said on the air. The segment opens with the hosts talking about an upcoming guest for the show. One host jokes about a running pattern they've noticed over the last month. He says for the last month, every single Browns guest gets asked the same first question: who's going to be the starting quarterback? He says he's been snickering about it every single time, and that he's looking forward to answering that question for the next 6 weeks. It's framed as a running joke about how much attention the quarterback competition is already getting before a single preseason snap has been taken. From there, the conversation shifts. One host brings up a different topic entirely: 30-pound dumbbells, and a moment from a locker room where people reacted to someone doing a shoulder press with them. He uses that as a jumping-off point to bring up something Bill Parcells once told Tony Romo, back when Parcells was head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. According to the host, Parcells told Romo that nobody wants a celebrity quarterback. Don't be a celebrity quarterback. Get on the grind, do your stuff. The host says that kind of thing always concerns him a little with young players, when the outside perception is that someone is more focused on building a brand than building a career. It's a comparison meant to set up the rest of the segment. The idea that fame and football don't always mix well in the public eye, at least according to old school thinking in the sport. Another host responds by pointing out that the player they're discussing has, in his words, been a celebrity quarterback from almost day one, since the moment he got into college football, and that he's done pretty well despite that. The first host agrees, but notes that despite the celebrity status, the player still slipped from being viewed as a potential first-round pick down to a fifth-round selection on draft day. That's stated as a fact by the hosts, not disputed by either side of the conversation. They mentioned a podcast called The Stinking Truth, which airs on Odyssey, and say the podcast's host had also commented on this same topic: the video, the reaction, all of it. It's referenced almost like a preview, since the hosts note the subject of the video is expected to call in to that same podcast later.
We're done with that stuff. Right now it's football. We're done with all the fame stuff, the legendary. We're done with that. It's football time now, right? That's the only thing that Tom Munkin cares about.
I don't know. I saw videos over the weekend.
What'd you see?
Oh, this video.
Hey, how you doing?
Legendary.
Damn, yes sir. What's your name? Where you from?
Shedeur Sanders, Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay, Cleveland, Ohio's in the house. Stop playing with them, man. You see the fit. Describe it today.
Fear God 101, man. You know what I'm saying?
Fear God.
Then the conversation turns fully to the video itself, the one that's actually driving this whole segment. One host says he saw videos over the weekend and starts describing what's in them. In the clip, the interviewer greets the subject by saying legendary in the person on camera response. He's asked where he's from and says Cleveland, Ohio. The interviewer comments on his appearance, referencing ice, meaning jewelry, and asks him to describe what he's wearing. The subject responds with a phrase referencing fear God. At this point, one host jokes that they need help translating what's being said, and jokingly asks if they need to bring in someone described as Your John, apparently a running bit on the show about needing outside help understanding slang, fashion trends, or generational references they aren't fully familiar with. The hosts go back and forth describing what the person was wearing in the video: a lot of diamond bracelets, jewelry, and necklaces, what they refer to collectively as being iced out. They also mention that he has security with him when he walks around in public. One host jokes that the look, combined with a pinky ring, makes him look like a mob boss, and another describes his outfit as looking like a gray jumpsuit. Despite the joking tone, one host says plainly, on the record, that he thinks the person looks great and offers direct congratulations on his success. They continue describing the interview moment by moment. The subject is asked for style advice in response by saying he'd tell people to be comfortable, that he's comfortable everywhere he goes and everything he does. He's then asked where he starts when building his outfits, and he says he starts with the vision, the mind first, because the mind is going to tell you how to feel, and then you put the rest of the outfit on after that. The interviewer connects this answer back to that same morning, saying that when the subject got up, he started with a vision, and now, standing there in the interview, the vision has come to life. It's a small back and forth, but the hosts clearly find it entertaining enough to play back in full on the show. From here, the hosts bring themselves into the bit. One host, Daryl, is asked what he's wearing that day, and he says it's one of his coaching shirts, chosen because it's comfortable. Another host says he's wearing a hoodie, and jokes that was his own personal vision for the day, adding it gets a little drafty in the studio. Daryl then notes that Brown's training camp starts that same week, so he's wearing black. Another host jokingly criticizes that particular joke is low-hanging fruit, saying they're supposed to be staying optimistic heading into camp.
I don't know. We've got more. You want to hear it?
Okay.
If I got style advice, what would it be?
I would say be comfortable. I'm always comfortable everywhere I do. Everything I do, everywhere I go, I'm comfortable.
We love that. We love that. When you're building your fits, where you start?
Start with the vision. I start with the mind first. The mind will tell you how to feel, and then you just put the rest on.
Okay. Oh, and when you got up this morning,
Yep.
you started with a vision.
I did.
And now I'm looking at you,
Yep.
and the vision has come to life.
Yep.
You're wearing an Avon Lake shirt.
They then reference more clips from what they call the People Gallery, additional short interview moments filmed with random people out on the street, apparently part of the same video series. In one clip, someone is asked whether they'd rather have a partner with style or with funds. The person answers that he hopes for both, and when pushed further, says he'd probably compromise somewhere around 30-something% split. In another clip, someone is asked for their favorite song at the moment, and the answer given is a song called Turn Back by Shedeur. One host says he gave the artist credit for that song on the air, and afterward got a few texts questioning whether he actually likes that kind of music. He says he told people it reminded him of Drake, and that he genuinely couldn't tell the difference between the two. He adds, somewhat jokingly, that he thinks the song should go platinum and rack up a huge number of streams. At this point, one of the hosts, Daryl, offers a more pointed opinion. He says it's a little premature to be using the word legendary to describe this player right now. Another host pushes back on that framing, saying it's simply the player's personal brand, his own way of describing himself, not necessarily a factual claim about his football legacy. Daryl responds that, in his view, you have to accomplish something first before you can be called legendary, though he's quick to clarify that he considers himself, in his own words, team this player, even while making that critical comment about the label. The other host jokes that it doesn't sound like it right now, and warns that people reacting on social media and YouTube are going to come after Daryl for the comment. As a quick aside in the middle of that exchange, one host notes that the segment itself is sponsored by Cheyenne Jewelers, described on air as Cleveland's premier jewelry store, a detail that gets a laugh given the segment is largely about jewelry in the first place. The host defending the player then lays out a factual case for why the legendary tag might be earned. He notes that the player was drafted, started at Colorado, and that the team's overall record during his time there was 13 wins and 12 losses, just above 500. He also points out that Colorado retired his jersey number after he left. Daryl responds by asking what Colorado's record looked like before this player arrived on campus, and the other host answers that the program was, in his own words, in the basement before that turnaround. Daryl then makes an observation about where the Colorado program stands today, saying it seems like the team might be headed back to the basement again this year. He adds that he isn't sure what Deion Sanders, referred to informally as Dion throughout the segment, is doing with the team right now, given that the program lost both this quarterback and another key player, Travis Hunter, to the NFL in the same offseason. One host briefly agrees, noting there have been significant losses to the roster.
It's good.
I will say this. I think Shedeur is a tad premature on the legendary branding.
Well, that's his thing.
You have to accomplish something first before you become legendary. And listen.
He has. What do you mean? Hold on.
I'm Team Shedeur, by the way.
Daryl,
but like, you
it
got to
Sounds like
accomplish
it right now.
Wait. That's totally unfair. And for the people that are reacting on social media and YouTube,
Those people that are brought to you by Shedeur Jewelers, Cleveland's premier jewelry store.
yeah, the people that are hearing you, Daryl, they're gonna come after you.
A producer or off-camera voice referred to as Maurice is brought directly into the conversation and asked whether he agrees with how Daryl and the others have been talking about the video. Maurice responds by saying it's just a young kid having fun, and he questions why the hosts are spending this much time discussing a street interview video at all, especially with an actual quarterback competition starting that very week. He calls the competition very serious stuff and repeatedly asks the hosts more than once what exactly they're even talking about. One host responds to Maurice by pointing out that the man in the video is actively promoting his hometown of Cleveland in Northeast Ohio and draws a contrast with LeBron James, saying LeBron isn't doing that kind of hometown promotion right now. It's used as a defense of the video, framing it as a positive thing for the city, not just a vanity clip. The conversation gets a little more heated for a moment, with hosts referencing negative reactions and messages described on air as hate that they've already received on social media, seemingly tied to earlier commentary the show has made about this same player. Despite that pushback, one host insists that regardless of the ongoing discussion around the video, the player is going to hit the field on Wednesday and start playing well, using the specific phrase "balling out" to describe what he expects. The conversation then shifts again, this time into direct comparisons with other players on the roster. One host, speaking off camera, asks whether the show is reacting to this workout video that was posted by Cleveland Browns defensive tackle Mason Graham. The answer given is no, they are not reacting the same way to that video. Another name comes up in the same breath, Tyler Shue, described as being filmed in San Diego alongside someone named Drew, and the hosts confirm on air that Shue doesn't even play for the Browns, which is treated as a reason his video wouldn't generate the same kind of local reaction. One host makes the underlying point that regardless of these other videos circulating, the reason there's so much more attention on this particular one comes down to how much traction the name itself generates in general online, what he refers to directly as being good for the algorithm. Maurice is then jokingly asked what his own personal vision was that morning when he got dressed, directly referencing the earlier phrase used by the interview subject. He responds, laughing, that he just woke up that morning and didn't put that kind of thought into getting dressed. The hosts then mention, almost as a preview for later, that the interview subject is expected to call in to the Stinking Truth podcast that same day, and they're personally looking forward to seeing his film crew out at training camp on Wednesday. They ask how many people are typically part of that film crew, and are told the number is 2. This detail leads directly into another comparison, this time to Deshaun Watson, another quarterback on the Browns roster who is part of the same training camp competition. One host jokes that beyond the actual on-field quarterback competition, there's now effectively also a film crew competition playing out between the two players' camera teams, and jokes about who will end up getting the best camera angle on any given day at camp. Another host jokingly suggests that to save money and avoid unnecessary duplicated effort, the two camps should simply combine their video production into one operation. The suggestion is met with agreement from the other hosts, who call it the smart move and even the visionary move, tying it back to the vision language used earlier in the segment. The segment wraps by circling back to lighter, unrelated material from the host's own personal weekends. They reference the interview subject's on-camera answer about his zodiac sign, where he responded with the phrase, "the money sign," rather than naming an actual astrological sign, a moment the hosts clearly found funny enough to bring back up. One host is then teased about a home improvement project from the weekend, described as painting the walls at his house. He explained that he had to scrub his hair thoroughly afterward, because when he was finished, he noticed streaks in his hair that made it look like it had turned gray from the paint. He admitted there was a moment where he considered just leaving it that way and letting people talk. That's the complete sequence of what actually happened in the segment. A viral street interview featuring a Cleveland-based individual introduced on camera through the phrase "legendary," followed by roughly 10 straight minutes of radio hosts reacting to it in real time, debating how premature the legendary label might be, weighing in on Colorado's win-loss record and retired jersey number, discussing the ongoing Browns quarterback competition heading into camp, and comparing public reaction to this specific video against the far smaller reaction to similar clips involving other players on the roster, including Mason Graham and Tyler Shue.
That's what I'm saying. This is what happens with guys like Daryl and the Cleveland media.
Listen, Shedeur's going to hit the field Wednesday and start balling out.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
What was that, Darryl?
I said he's going to hit the field on Wednesday, and he's going to start balling out.
That's all it is. So what are we discussing now, talking about this video?
We're talking about Legendary.
Listen,
Stop it. Can
it went viral.
Can he just work out without all this? Can he just work out without all
Along the way, the hosts touched on jewelry, fashion, a specific song, personal outfit choices in the studio, a home renovation project, and even a joke about combining film crews between two competing quarterbacks, all while circling back repeatedly to the same central question that opened the show. Who is going to be the Browns' starting quarterback? Training camp for the Cleveland Browns starts this week. According to the hosts, that's when attention shifts fully back to on-field performance for every quarterback on the roster once the pads go on and the actual competition begins. It's worth stepping back and looking at what this segment actually represents, beyond just the jokes and the back and forth. A short, unscripted street interview filmed by someone the hosts describe as part of a People Gallery series turned into roughly 10 minutes of radio conversation on a show that primarily covers the Cleveland Browns. That, on its own, tells you something about where the attention is right now heading into camp. The hosts didn't set out to do a segment about jewelry, fashion, or a zodiac sign joke. They set out to preview the quarterback competition, and the conversation kept pulling itself back toward this one video, over and over throughout the segment. The tension in the room is fairly clear just from listening to the exchange. On one side, there's Darryl, who is upfront about thinking the Legendary label is premature, even while stating clearly that he's personally rooting for the player. On the other side, there's a host actively building the case in the player's favor, citing the actual win-loss record at Colorado, the retired jersey number, and the draft trajectory, all without disputing any of it. Neither side denies the underlying facts. The disagreement is entirely about framing, whether a nickname and an interview persona matter at all compared to what happens on the field starting Wednesday. Then there's Maurice, brought in from off-camera, who represents a third perspective entirely, not really taking a side on the Legendary debate, but questioning why the debate is happening at all during a week when an actual competition is about to start. His pushback is one of the more pointed moments in the segment, precisely because it isn't playful in the same way the rest of the conversation is. He calls it very serious stuff, referring to the quarterback competition, and repeatedly asks the hosts to explain what exactly they're spending time discussing instead. The comparison to Mason Graham and Tyler Show is also worth sitting with for a second, because it's the moment the hosts themselves seem to acknowledge the double standard they're describing. A defensive lineman posts a workout video and it doesn't generate this kind of extended conversation. A quarterback who doesn't even play for the Browns posts a video and it doesn't generate this kind of extended conversation either. But this particular video from this particular player tied to this particular city does. One host names the reason directly. It comes down to how much traction the name generates online, which he describes plainly as being good for the algorithm. That's not framed as a criticism exactly, and it's not framed as praise either. It's stated more as an observation about how attention works right now, in this moment, for this player, regardless of whether anyone in the room fully agrees with it. By the time the segment winds down, the hosts have moved from a serious point about Bill Parcells and Tony Romo all the way to a joke about combining two quarterbacks' film crews to save money, and then further still to a completely unrelated story about painting walls over the weekend. That range, from a real point about celebrity quarterbacks and career focus to lighthearted banter about jewelry and zodiac signs, is a fairly accurate snapshot of what sports talk radio sounds like the week before training camp opens. The football hasn't started yet. The narratives already have. What happens next, according to everyone in that room, doesn't depend on any video, any interview, or any nickname. It depends on Wednesday, when the pads come on, the quarterback competition officially begins, and as one host put it, the only thing that will actually matter from that point forward is what happens on the field.